"I'll be back," the catchphrase from the first film, which became one of the main movie quotes in history, sounded for a reason. He left, but promised to come back. And he did come back, according to many, in the most successful sequel in the history of cinema. Cameron's directorial talent seems to have only grown stronger over the years. Of course, having received dozens of times more resources at his disposal, and technologies that have managed to make significant progress since the filming of the first part, James simply had to give out such a spectacle, the equal of which has not yet been in the world. So it eventually turned out. Cameron and screenwriter Vischer started brainstorming. Of course, they could just repeat the original on an even bigger scale, but Cameron wanted to follow the path of Strangers, and make a picture that develops the ideas of the first part and takes them in an unexpected direction. One day Cameron showed Vischer a paper on which it was written, young John Connor and the Terminator who arrived from the future, who becomes his friend. From this idea, the film grew. Cameron decided to make the main character a boy who, thanks to a meeting with the Terminator, acquires moral principles, realizes the value of human life and gives the T-800 a command that contradicts its whole essence not to kill. Cameron saw the main idea of the sequel not in the fact that machines decide to destroy humanity, but in the fact that people themselves lose their humanity and become like machines. To the indignation of the producers, Cameron refused to write the script without Linda Hamilton's consent to participate in the film. He just couldn't see the story without Sarah Connor and the scene where she discards everything human and tries to become a Terminator to kill Miles Dyson. Fortunately, Hamilton agreed to return to the role. Her only condition was that Sarah become a little crazy. Cameron happily agreed to put the heroine in a mental hospital. Another critical factor was the T-1000. Back in the early 1980s, Cameron came up with a robot that can change shape and take on the appearance of any person. The T-1000 was supposed to be the perfect villain, far superior to a good Terminator. But before writing the T-1000 into the plot, Cameron needed to know for sure that it could be shown on the screen. James turned to ILM, which created the famous water tentacle for the Abyss. Then it took 9 months for the special effects masters to make 75 seconds of computer graphics. And now Cameron needed a full-fledged character. Experts convinced the director that this was possible by showing a test shot of the T-1000 coming out of the flame. Only after that Cameron and Vischer started working on the script. On paper, it was almost the same, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. The key difference between the script and the film turned out to be an extended war scene of the future. It was supposed to look like this. In a grand ground battle, the Resistance defeats the Skynet army and captures the time machine. Then we would see John Connor instructing Kyle Reese and sending him back in time, and after that admits to his subordinates that Kyle is his father. The bomb squad is about to blow up the installation, but Connor stops them, saying that there is something to do first. He goes down to the Terminator storage and finds a row with the T-800 model, one of the cells of which is empty. John goes to the next one and looks at a face we know well. This is the same Terminator that he will send to protect himself in the past. Unfortunately, the producers cut this scene down, considering that it was too difficult to produce. But even without these episodes, Judgment Day became at that time the largest film in history. Doomsday is amazing in that it incomprehensibly successfully combines scenes with computer and full-scale filming. Many are still convinced of the virtual origin of many scenes, although in fact we are dealing with masterfully created dolls. Terminator 2 is also full of mannequins, but they are made at a much higher level compared to the first film. For example, the episode present in the director's version with the extraction of the T-800 chip from the head and subsequent reprogramming it for training. The robot sits quietly in a chair in front of the mirror, and Sarah Connor picks at his head. The frame is constructed in such a way that we see the action both from the back of the real heroes, and with the help of reflection in the mirror. The scene is very naturalistic. It is noticeable how in the foreground the heroine boldly picks at Arnie's head, whose reflection in the mirror at the same time behaves like a real actor. The whole thing is that there is no mirror, and the reflection is the real Schwarzenegger, sitting facing the mannequin. What about Linda Hamilton, who played the main character? She is real in one case, in another. Fortunately for the crew, the actress has a twin sister Leslie. It is she who repeats Linda's movements. Needless to say, it took a lot of time for the two ladies to work out synchronous movements. In addition to Leslie and Linda Hamilton, there was a place for a couple of twins in Doomsday. Surely you remember the mental hospital, and one of its guards, a plump man who likes to drink coffee. The T-1000, which took the form of an unlucky fat man with a schizophrenic expression, is not the fruit of special effects, but the actor's own brother. Soon here we see another gorgeous mannequin, strung on a finger blade. Speaking of dolls, there are a huge number of them in the second Terminator, and everything is as alive, even those who embody liquid metal evil in the person of the T-1000. We recall an episode of The Chase in the same mental hospital. Mother and child are hiding behind an elevator door. A T-800 runs in behind them, taking dozens of bullets in the back. The doors close, but they are immediately opened with their claws by the T-1000. Arnie's hero finds nothing better than to shoot a scoundrel in the head with a hard drive. It immediately bifurcates and moves the metal appendages. It looks like computer graphics, but in fact, a silicone mannequin with servos. Similar dolls were used in the creation of the T-1000 with a shot face, and at the very end, when Arnie uses a grenade launcher to make a screaming mass out of a Mercury cyborg right before it falls into the hot metal. The puppet version of the cyborg can also be seen in the scene with liquid nitrogen. The blue-faced figure with surprise frozen on its face was made of fragile material, very effectively breaking into small fragments. Schwarzenegger was also lucky with artificial doubles. In addition to the mentioned head with a chip, an impressive mannequin was used in the episode with the Office of Cyberdyne Systems, which Sarah Connor and T-800 were supposed to destroy. The doll appears when the police break into the building to restore order and throw gas cylinders into the room. The T-800 rushes straight at the guards, and they scupper it with lead. Bits and pieces are flying from the robot, everything is in smoke, metal glitters in place of the right half of the face. In this case, the alternation of filming of a real actor is also masterfully applied. His firecrackers hidden in his jacket explode, imitating the hit of bullets in a full-size mannequin, which was controlled by two people. One led him around the playground, the second moved his head. Even Sarah Connor had to make mannequins, and she got the most disgusting ones. They were all burned in the episode where John Connor's mom sees a nuclear explosion in a dream. One doll tries to protect the future savior of mankind from the devouring flame, two more burn up near the grate, the fourth mannequin shatters into small pieces, exposing the skeleton. Pieces of papier-mâché were stuck on the doll, after which they were torn off with the help of a special air cannon, fixing everything with the help of slow motion. It turned out very naturalistic. Dolls were dolls, and they went to Terminator 2, not least because of the incredible computer special effects for that time. The episode with the release of the liquid T-1000 from a blazing truck and the transformation of a robot into a human for a long time was a model of the skill of virtual artists, until the first Matrix appeared on the screens. Many went to the cinema just for this and several other scenes with the participation of the main villain. Industrial Light Magic, a special effects studio founded by George Lucas, is responsible for the fact that the audience's jaw literally dropped. The creation of several minutes of computer graphics took almost $10 million in terms of the current course and thousands of man-hours. To shoot the famous episode with the exit from the burning car, Robert Patrick, who played the T-1000, had to wind kilometers naked in front of cameras that captured all his movements on a special grid applied to the body. When there was enough material, experts spent weeks applying metal textures to the resulting virtual model. At the junction of different textures covering the virtual body of the actor, cracks first peeked through. To disguise them, we had to use a specially written program. Some errors were hastily corrected in Photoshop. The work was extremely time-consuming. The specialists had to take into account the location of the cameras during the shooting of the film, the situation, shadows, various light sources and everything else that could affect the appearance of the environment reflected in the metal. The same work was done in the scene with the T-1000 chasing the car flowing into the elevator, and the viscous Terminator was created thanks to software that was previously used in the film Abyss, shot by James Cameron 2 years before the release of Doomsday. But the wounds from bullets on the body of the robot of the last generation were done without a computer. The actor wore a special vest with roses, made of foam rubber cocked on springs. As soon as a bullet was supposed to hit the T-1000, the assistant remotely activated the spring, the hole from the shot opened. But it was necessary to tighten all the wounds with the help of computer animation. It was also necessary in the fragment with the Terminator seeping through the grate in the corridor of the psychiatric hospital. The room was removed both with and without a grate. In the second case, an actor playing a robot stood in place of the grid. A three-dimensional cyborg model created on a computer was superimposed on the image of Robert Patrick and flowed through the bars. The director was ready to do anything to impress the viewer, even if it is a very tiny episode that can easily be literally missed. The final quarter of the film, AT-1000 helicopter barrages over Cyberdyne Systems, jumps into it from a motorcycle, breaks the glass and flows into the cockpit, after which the metal incarnation of the cyborg utters the phrase, "Get out," to the pilot for a second. To remove the Terminator's face at the moment of uttering two short words, Robert Patrick's face was painted in a grid. The actor himself had to repeat individual sounds several times, and the entire process of the slightest changes in facial muscles was recorded using a special three-dimensional scanner. This was followed by painstaking work on gluing individual frames and texturing. Perhaps the easiest thing while working on the image of the T-1000 was to recreate its fluidity during thawing. The film crew simply drove several mercury blots into a puddle with hair dryers. No less attention than mannequins and computer special effects is paid to stunts in the film. One of the most impressive scenes is the episode of the T-1000 truck chase after John fleeing on a moped. During the filming, 3 vans had to be smashed. One failed immediately after it flew over the fence into the canal, so 2 other cars are involved in the chase. Another car has its roof blown off under the arch. They say that initially nothing like this was planned, but when Cameron found out about the bridge being too low, he decided not to be wise and to further distort the truck. In order not to distract the actor playing the role of the T-1000, he was not entrusted with the management of the truck. In fact, Robert Patrick is sitting on the right behind the fake steering wheel, and an experienced stuntman is hiding in the driver's seat, who directs the whole machine. Then the necessary frames were mirrored, so it seems as if there really is a cyborg in the driver's seat on the left. Let's recall again the fragment with the nuclear explosion in Sarah Connor's dream. What the viewer sees almost 100% coincides with the real consequences of the detonation of an atomic bomb, in any case, according to experts. But for this, James Cameron's team did not have to look for a terrible weapon. The filmmakers applied the experience gained during the filming of the first Terminator. They built a miniature version of the city out of cookies and cornflakes. The shock wave was created with the help of powerful air cannons that carried crispy food into small crumbs. The scene had to be shot in several takes from different angles, so it took more than 1 kilogram of crackers to recreate the layout. Well, then, a standard cinematic set like slow motion, pyrotechnic lights and smoke, the finale was filmed at a real factory. However, it was not as hot there as it looks in the movie. Of course, there was no question of any real molten metal. Instead, the film crew used an illuminated liquid made of butter and syrup. The necessary viscosity of the substance was maintained only at a temperature of about 5 degrees, so it was cold in the room. The illusion of heat had to be created with spray guns with water, which was sprayed on the actors' faces. In Terminator 2, Cameron was going to end the story without leaving any hints of a sequel. He filmed the ending, which was set in 2029 in an alternate future where there was no war and John Connor became a senator. For this scene, Stan Winston designed the makeup of an elderly Sarah Connor. They say that when Cameron saw Linda Hamilton in makeup, he thought that Winston had brought his grandmother to the set, which amused the film crew a lot. But this finale did not hit the cinema screens. Now it can be seen in a special extended version of the film. The producers decided to leave some loophole for the sequel. In addition, the episode was not too well received on test screenings, as it was out of the general tone of the picture. Hollywood drew its own conclusions from the triumph of the picture. Doomsday opened an era when studios began to value sequels more than original stories, and special effects became the basis of success. But, despite all the scope, the main thing in Terminator was not a beautiful picture, but a great story and interesting characters who wanted to empathize. Thanks to all this, you appreciate the Judgment Day even more now. For a quarter of a century, we have seen a lot of colorful kaleidoscope films with a bunch of special effects, but how many of them have really sunk into our soul? Many human thanks to James Cameron for giving us one of the best fantastic film stories of all time. The future may not be predetermined, but the Terminator has taken its place in our past for a long time and will not give it to anyone. And that's it for me. If you liked the video, then don't be lazy to like it and write your opinion about what you saw. And also, fly into my playlist about how to make a movie. Everyone will find something interesting for themselves in it. Subscribe to the channel, put likes and be sure to click the bell so as not to miss new releases. See you soon.